there's been many times in my life when I have felt that. I have told myself that, like, if you can't do this thing on your own, you're not independent. Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Hey guys, it is Molly here again for another video, just chilling in my living room on my furry little chair that Lavender has really taken to. She, it's like she thinks it's like her mom, you know? She just kneads it with her paws and sleeps on it. So she's quite perturbed that I've taken my throne back.
But she also likes your pink chairs. So
she likes all chairs. She owns all the chairs in this apartment.
Right now, it's the pink one is her favorite, and she goes later to that one.
I know. It's very funny. She's a very funny lady. I want to talk a little bit about independence as a blind person. I do a lot of public speaking, as you guys probably know if you've been around the block with me. And I do a lot of public speaking to blind youth. And I recently did a virtual event with a bunch of blind youth, and something they asked me a lot about was independence, and I felt like we had a really powerful and important conversation around the topic. And then, like, maybe a week later, and I'd already thought, like, oh, I should make a video about this, because I was talking about it with my boyfriend who's also blind, and he was like, you really should make a video about this if you haven't yet. And I was like, you're right. And then I put it off and put it in the back of my mind, and then a week later I'm scrolling TikTok and I see this blind TikToker talk about it, and she echoed a lot of my sentiments towards it. I'll link her TikTok video below. And I was like, yes, that's the kind of a lot of the stuff that I was talking about and feeling and wanted to, share with these youth. And so yeah, it just really inspired me to just sit down and have this conversation, because I think as blind people, and probably disabled people in general, we grow up hearing a lot about independence and its value and its importance, and that it is something we should strive towards, which I entirely agree with. But I just kind of want to share my perspective on it, because I myself have certainly had a lot of internal dialogue around what is independence in general and what is independence for me. And I think it's an important thing to talk about. I think as blind people, one thing we can certainly all agree on is the fact that technology and the internet has been a big source of freedom and independence for us. So I do want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. My website, mollyburkeofficial.com, is a Squarespace website, and my website before that was, and my website before that was. I've been a user of Squarespace to run my business online for a very long time, and they really have got you covered from analytics to marketing tools, online stores. They have got it all to build a beautiful online platform, a beautiful online presence to run and grow your business. I would really encourage you, if you're going to be designing a Squarespace website, to use one of their layouts and really think about accessibility. Doing things like adding alt text for your images so that blind screen reader users like myself can know what's happening in the photo. You'll see that in use on my website, and they just have all sorts of easy ways that you can build an accessible website. So check it out, squarespace.com. You can get a free trial, and if you go to squarespace.com/mollyburke, you can get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. And once again, I'm gonna pull a little Graham Stephan and ask you to hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm. If you enjoy my content and you would like to support my content, the best easy way that you could do that is simply by giving this video a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. Ooh, potatoes.
Potato, 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 potato.
It's one of the most Irish things about me, how much I truly, deeply love potatoes. Anyways, not the point of this video. I think often as blind people, or again, probably even disabled people in general, we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do everything on our own, to never need help. It's like we view that as the golden standard, or at least I know I and a lot of my blind friends that I've discussed this with have felt that way. That it's like to be independent means to do it all and never need help. But that's unrealistic, and it's frankly unfair to yourself and to our community as a whole. And the reality is, independence looks different for everybody, even for able-bodied people. some people who are able-bodied, who can see, live at home with their parents until they're 30. And that's okay. Other able-bodied people move out at 18. The moment they hit 18, they're like, sweet freedom, I'm moving out on my own, or moving in with roommates, whatever. And so I think to say that we as blind people, like, to be independent, the only way to do that is to live alone. To be independent, the only way to do that is to cook for yourself. To be independent, the only way to do that is X, Y, Z, whatever it might be, is unfair, because sighted people don't hold themselves to that standard. So why are we holding ourselves to that standard just so that we can prove to society that we can do it? Just to prove to ourselves that we can do it? And I know there's been many times in my life when I have felt that. I have told myself that, like, if you can't do this thing on your own, you're not independent. Or if you need help doing this thing, you're not independent. And I've really worked on that in my own mind. I think for a long time, I felt that way about cooking. Like, I had to be able to cook delicious meals for myself on the stovetop and in the oven, and all the ways in which you can cook. I had to do that in order to really be a proper independent blind person. And I took all the cooking classes for the blind. I went to the school for the blind for 2 years, and I took home ec both years. I took independent living skills classes for the blind where they tried to teach me to cook. And guess what? I'm not very good at it. It just never stuck. And in fact, cooking brings me a lot of anxiety. It really stresses me out. I get very scared of burning myself. I get very scared of cutting myself. And I know there's techniques to avoid those things, but I still get anxious. And so I've just come to accept and realize that for me, cooking isn't one of those things that I need to feel independent as a blind person. For some blind people, that might be the most important step. That might be the most valuable thing that they could have to feel independent. For me, one of the most valuable things that I strived towards was financial independence. Not relying on my family, not relying on a partner, and not relying on the government was really, really important for me. That was something that I worked my whole life to achieve, and it was a goal that I had in my mind of what would make me personally feel independent. And I worked really hard to get to that place, and I'm really proud to say that I'm there. I'm financially independent. I have been for years, and it feels really, really good. But for other people, that might not be realistic because of their circumstances. And it might just not be something that really brings them the sense of independence or value. And so for them, not achieving that isn't a big deal. So the reality is, just because one thing makes you feel independent doesn't mean that all blind people or all disabled people or all people, period, must have that same thing to feel independent. I remember when I first moved to LA, my mom came with me, and the plan was that she just stayed for 2 months to help me settle, help me get all my O&M lessons, help me find my way around the neighborhood, maybe make some friends, and then she was going to leave. And she ended up staying because thankfully my career took off much quicker than we expected. And it was either I hire somebody else or I just have my mom. And it just made more sense to have my mom. And I thought, well, okay, I still want to live alone. Like, let's rent separate apartments. And I was talking to my dad about it, and he was like, why is that so important for you? And I was like, well, I want to show people, and I want to show myself that, like, I can do it. And he's like, Molly, you already lived alone for 2 years. You lived alone from 18 to 20. You proved to your family, you proved to your friends, you proved to yourself that you can do that. So, like, what's the big deal? It's like economically smarter to just share an apartment. LA rent is insanely expensive. And at the time, despite the fact that my career was growing and taking off, I was very financially strapped for cash. We were literally thinking about taking out a loan on my business to pay rent. And so why on earth would I pay 2 rents, or expect my parents to pay a rent and me pay rent in a very expensive place when we could just share? And so that's why we shared an apartment, and I had people make fun of me for it, and I had people look down upon me for it, being in my mid-20s, living with my mom still. But I realized like I didn't really care that other people were judging me for it, because again, like, I now own my own home, I now live alone, but like, I have plenty of friends that are 27 who are able-bodied and still live with their parents, because guess what? The world's expensive. I think one thing that I've noticed that's super interesting is people often pick on me for working with my mom at the age that I am. But number one, we're 50-50 owners in the business, and we take the same salary from the business. And number two, so many able-bodied YouTubers who are adults work with their parents, and nobody judges them for it. Nobody tears them down for it. Nobody makes fun of them for it, because they're able-bodied. And so it's presumed that they're working with their parents because they want to run a family business. But because I'm disabled and work with my mom, it's presumed that I do so because I can't do it on my own. Mia Maples works full-time with her mom and her brother. Rosanna Pansino works with her sister and her boyfriend. The Merrill twins work with their mom and their dad. There is plenty of adult YouTubers who work with their families. And so for me, the way I look at it is, no, I don't work with my mom because I'm disabled. I work with my mom because YouTubers often have large teams, and sometimes it's family and sometimes it's not. But why not have it be family if it works? My mom and I have a great working relationship. I can financially support my family, which is an amazing feeling, versus just paying somebody else. So yeah, I mean, I just think it's another way in which we as disabled people get judged, whether it be by able-bodied people or frankly, even more so by our own people, by disabled people, judging each other for not doing what we view as the thing we're supposed to do. So I have a very large team of people that I employ, and my mom is the only one that's a family member. I have my editor, Robin. I have Laura, Kaylee, Erica, Reuven, and Kelly. None of them are family members, so, you know, there you have it. You know, it's really hard to get on your feet and move out on your own, and it's something to be really proud of when you achieve, but it's also not something to feel bad about yourself for not achieving yet, because we all are on different timelines in life. No two paths are the same. And so to judge somebody for not walking the path that you think is the correct path to walk isn't really the way to go about living life. You know, I always tell you guys, choose to live with empathy, choose to live with an open mind, because you truly never know what's going on in somebody else's life. I didn't live with my mom because I couldn't live alone. And that was what was most important to me, is I realized, why am I doing something to prove to other people that I can do it when I've already done it? It just doesn't really matter. It doesn't make any sense. One thing I've talked a lot with my ophthalmologist, which is my eye specialist, about is how many of her patients' parents, because she works at a children's hospital, so how many of her patients' parents ask her to not tell the kids that they're blind. I actually did a video with Caroline Casey a while back, whose parents did not tell her that she was blind. And she talked about the effect that it had on her. And my specialist is very against this. And she talks to me a lot about it because she knows that my parents took the very opposite approach, were incredibly transparent about my blindness with me my entire life. I started learning how to say retinitis pigmentosa when I was like 5 years old. My whole life I was told, you're gonna go blind one day. And my parents didn't make it a shameful thing. They didn't make it something to be embarrassed about. They didn't make it something they hid from me or from other people. They proudly would tell people that we would meet, oh, this is my daughter and she's blind. Obviously, it wasn't like they were like, this is my daughter, she's blind. Like, it wasn't the first thing, but like they never hid it. They never shied away from telling people proudly in front of me that I was blind and that's why I had a cane, or that I was blind and that's why I needed XYZ accommodation made. I remember before every soccer game, you guys, again, if you've been around the channel for a while, you know I was a big soccer player. I was a forward, a mix between left wing, right wing, center. Anyways, not the point. For my soccer fans, that's the position I played. And I was at a high level. And before every game, you know, my dad would go to the referee and he'd say, by the way, my daughter's blind, so she's gonna need to keep sunglasses on because she's very light sensitive. And he would he never hid it. There was never shame. There was never shame in my parents when they shared it with people. And so I never was taught to feel shame. I was never taught to feel embarrassed about telling people, hey, I'm blind. And I get asked a lot from young blind people, like, how do you tell people? When do you tell people? And I always think it's an interesting question because I know they're asking because it's something that they're probably struggling to figure out how to do. And I never struggled with it because I was always taught to just do it, to just own it. And I feel really grateful because I know just from some of you sharing with me, from Caroline sharing with me, from my ophthalmologist sharing with me, that unfortunately that isn't the way a lot of young blind people are taught to feel, or are taught to handle their disability. And a lot of us are taught about self-advocacy from our O&M instructors, from our, life coaches. Life coach? What's the word I'm looking for? Life skills coach. There we go. Life coach is something different. Like self-advocacy, speaking up for yourself is something we're taught all through school, from vision itinerants, from basically every person that plays a role in a young blind person's life. We're taught about self-advocacy and its importance. And it really does play an important role. And I guess for me, I've gone to a place in my life where I look at everything and I think, okay, can I do this on my own? Yes. And that's good enough for me. Knowing I can do it on my own is good enough for me. It doesn't mean I always need to do it on my own. I love knowing that I can walk to my local Starbucks on my own and grab a coffee. Do I ever realistically do that? No, because I'm an extrovert and I love going with friends or family or my partner. So I rarely go alone, but I can. And knowing that I can is really all I care about. And so when I know I can do something, but I also know that asking for help would make it quicker, I'll often just ask for help. Because doing it on my own just to do it on my own doesn't really bring me joy. It doesn't really reward me. What makes me feel good is knowing that I have the skills to do it, not the actual act of always doing it on my own. And so, for example, when I go to Starbucks on my own, which, as I said, I don't do it often, but I certainly have many times. When I go to Starbucks on my own, what I will do is when I go to order, I'll give my order and then I will say to them, also, just so you know, I'm blind, so when the coffee comes out, if the barista could hand the cup to me directly in my hand instead of putting it on the counter with all the other coffees, that would be really helpful. And if she could also put the lid on it already, that would be great. Thank you. And that makes my life so much easier because then I'm not bumbling around trying to reach for the right coffee, bumbling around touching all the lids, making them gross, and then trying to find the one that fits my cup. And the reality is that little thing, just asking, advocating, telling them up front what I need, makes it easier for all of us because oftentimes people want to provide assistance. People want to help, but they don't know how. And that's what makes them feel uncomfortable. But when you just give them the answer, when you just give them the solution to this problem they're seeing, they're like, oh, great, perfect. And frankly, it doesn't take time out of the barista's day to do that simple thing that makes my life much quicker and easier. So yeah, for me, knowing I can do something is enough. I don't feel the need to constantly do it. What I love to do is the forms of independence that bring me joy and confidence, and the forms that I don't view as being important to me personally, I let go by the wayside. I'm like, all right, great. This is my moment to advocate, ask for the help I need, get it done. So yeah, I guess basically what I'm trying to say is knowing I can do something on my own doesn't mean I need to do it on my own, or at least doesn't mean I need to do it on my own all of the time. We as blind people often talk about the fact that we can do pretty much everything. We just do it in slightly different ways. And I think the reality is that the things that I as a blind person may need to ask for help for are different sometimes than the things that able-bodied people need to ask for help for, but able-bodied people still need to ask for help for things. Because everybody has different opportunities, has different abilities, has different skill sets. We're all unique individuals. And so it's not the same for everyone. No person can do 100% of the things 100% of the time. Everybody needs help with something sometimes. And asking for help doesn't mean you have failed. In fact, I would argue that failing to ask for help when you need it, that's failing. You're failing yourself because you're not giving yourself the best opportunity to grow and to flourish and to reach your full potential. So, in conclusion, strive for independence, whatever that means to you. And that goes for my blind folk, my disabled folk, my able-bodied folk. Do you, live your best life, and don't let anybody's judgments of how you choose to live affect you. Because what they think of you is none of your business. All right, thank you to Squarespace.
Hallelujah.
Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video once again. Like I said, go to squarespace.com/mollyburke to get 10% off your purchase of a website or domain name. And if you would like more Molly, you can click over here and check out this video that I did opening up about my weight loss. Or you can click this video over here where I go to tour condos for some design and renovation inspiration. All right, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.